Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. Hopefully this doesn't come off as some kind of epic rant, but I thought I would discuss something that really drives me crazy and frustrates me. So one of the things that happens oftentimes is that people will send me emails or personal messages on Facebook of other people doing stuff, most of the time on YouTube, teaching specific things, and then asking me, what do I think? Now, I have a standard response for this. My response is, I never ever comment directly on somebody's work. It's not my place to do that. And to be quite honest, the only time I ever pay attention to anything outside of what I do myself is if I feel that there's some value. I have no time or energy to sit and evaluate something that I immediately see has major flaws in it. So this discussion revolves around this idea of ultimately we need to, like what Aristotle talked about, the telos. What is the purpose of what we do, right? What is this purpose ultimately of what we're doing in the modern martial arts world? What are we training for? Now, of course, there are many reasons to train, right? There is the fitness, the health side of it, the lessons that you learn about yourself that you can take off the mat into the world in a positive way. These are very important things. But ultimately, it does come down to one crucial thing, which is functionality. Am I able to take what I've learned and what I've trained and apply it against a resisting opponent or opponents? Now, this is where we need some discernment, and you need to have more discernment when you are looking at things and looking at it in a way, is this actually going to be able to help you achieve any kind of measurable success against a resisting opponent? Everything works within the confines of a specific context, right? So let me give you an example. I will watch these videos and I will see people proclaiming that what they are teaching is going to lead a person to be able to successfully defend themselves. Now remember what we are defending ourselves against. Ultimately, we're defending ourselves against a resisting opponent, right? A resisting human being or human beings if there's multiple people. These people are not passive actors in this interchange. They are violent actors, people who fight back, who likely are willing to go way beyond that you even willing to go, and they also give a shit about their own ability to continue to survive, right? So if they're going to engage you, one of the things they're likely going to do is put everything on the line. So you need to keep that in the back of your mind when you're watching something, right? Is this something that I can actually use? Now, here is my issue. Here's my epic rant, right? 99.9% of the times, what you see is a prescribed method of doing something where both parties are in agreement. The person executing the attack is in agreement on what that attack's going to be. I, as the person dealing with the attack, is in agreement with what I'm going to do to neutralize that attack. That's okay, I'm going to get to that in a second, but there's a glaring problem there. The problem is that you and I have zero access to anybody else's consciousness. We don't know what that person is thinking, feeling, planning, and so forth, right? So you don't know when you are confronted with an aggressive person out on the street, if that person's going to throw a punch, if they're going to try to kick you, or they're going to pick up a brick instead and try to slam it into your head. You're not going to know that until it's right on top of you and until it's happening. And once this thing kicks off, it's going to be chaotic, it's going to be unpredictable, and you're going to have to just adjust to the situation as it unfolds. You will never, ever, almost never be in a situation that you would be in what I just described, where you know what the person's going to be doing and you know what you're going to be doing. Okay, so the question is, why drill? Rodney, you teach drills. Okay, fair enough. Okay, let me explain to you why, for example, I do drills, and I'll use an example here. Why do I teach combinations? Even though I don't believe that there's such a thing as a best combination in any kind of situation when you're dealing with a resisting opponent, and that the best combination, if we want to call it that, is the one that lands. And you don't know what that's going to be 9 times out of 10 until it lands, okay? So then why train these things? Why train a combination, for example, or a series of combinations? Well, because most people coming in have no experience and don't know how to move their body. And in this modern age, more than any other time, I guess, in history, most people have a huge disconnect between their head up here and the body. I can see it the way that they move. They can't actually engage their body effectively. They can think about what they should be doing, but the body does something completely different. So what I'm doing combinations for is I want to teach what I call movement efficacy, the ability to move into varied different lines. That's one of the reasons why you train a combination. So that you get really skilled at moving in all these different lines, so that when you are actually sparring, when a line appears and you hit into it, an open line for example, it's not like, I don't know how to hit that, I don't know how to move in that direction. Because what I've done is I've created movement efficacy within your body that enables you to be able to harness that moment in time, that unpredictability, and execute the right angle of attack. Even though most of this, if not all of it, is lying in the subconscious level, and you're not like consciously thinking to yourself, when that person drops his hand, I'm gonna jab him in the face, right? Because it doesn't work that way. In actual fact, anybody who's tried to do it that way will tell me that it doesn't work, right? If you say, for example, you're sparring me, you see me drop my left hand, then you see me drop my left hand, and then you think to yourself, when Rodney drops his left hand again, I'm gonna punch him with a jab. Right, I'm going to execute a jab, and then I don't drop my hand again. That's 9 times out of 10 how it works. And so, in actual fact, what you're trying to always gravitate towards, what you're training towards becoming, is a autopilot where everything just comes out exactly as it's supposed to, where you're not thinking about what technique is the right technique to execute, so that you have freedom and space within your head to focus on other stuff, for example, like your mental game. So the reality is that ultimately this is the way that I view it. If I teach you something, even in a drill, but you never see me ever pull that off in a live sparring environment, because sparring is the closest we can actually get to the realities of the street. Unless you're an idiot and you want to go out and look for a street fight every night to see if the stuff that you learned worked, which hopefully you're not, because that's just silly, and you're going to land up in prison. We don't get into fights every single day. But we want to train in case we do get into it, so we can actually respond in the way that we need to respond so that we can survive. So the closest we can get to that is sparring. I don't know how else you're going to do that. You could do scenario drills, but even if you do a scenario drill, you need to make sure the drill isn't pre-planned, right? You don't tell the person what you want them to do. You give them an overarching idea and say, go for it and just do whatever you need to do, and I want to see if my shit works. So ultimately, sparring is one of the ways to do that. So if I'm teaching a drill, but you never see me pull that stuff that I taught you in a drill off in live sparring, my opinion to that is chuck it. It's a waste of time, okay? So I can go on YouTube and I can see people doing trapping the hand, or what other stuff comes out a lot, you know, bunch of like really fancy shit. If I don't see somebody pull that off against multiple, not just once, multiple resisting opponents, I'm not interested. I don't see the value in that. What's the point of training it if you can't pull it off in a live environment? Which comes back to another discussion that I put up previously, right? At the end of the day, there are things that work and there are things that don't. I mean, this is what I've decided in Crazy Monkey Defense. I can teach a ton of stuff, but what's the point of teaching stuff that I know the chances of pulling it off is extremely rare, if at all? Now here's a good example. I can pull stuff off that most other people can't pull off because I've got, you know, a good level of game. I've built my attributes over the years. And so I can pull some of the stuff off that I see on YouTube. It's not the greatest thing, it's not the most effective, but I can pull it off. And the difference is I'll even pull it off in sparring, where I only see them pulling it off in some kind of prearranged drill, which we've been talking about. Okay. So yes, there is a ton of shit out there. There's lots of techniques. You can sit there all day long and just try to do some kind of matrix download and pump the shit into your head over and over and over again. But I'm telling you now that 99.9% of it is rubbish. It's garbage. Okay, so if you go watch a YouTube video and you see something and it's set up nicely, you know, the guy on the other side attacking throws a punch and then holds it out there, and then the other person does his blitz attack, but this person who just attacked doesn't do anything. He just stands there and just takes all the punishment. That in itself is the first sign that this is a load of bullshit, right? Okay, because let's look at it this way. I would consider myself a trained fighter. I've spent many years fighting, inside the gym, outside the gym, right? In a previous lifetime. Okay, if I decided for any reason to take you on, I'm telling you right now that even if you did your preemptive strike, even if you try to shred my face, whatever stuff you come up with, right? I'm gonna fucking fight back, and I'm gonna fight back with fucking everything that I have. You need to know that. Are you willing to now rely on that shit that you've been playing around with just in scenario training where you know exactly what's coming next? Are you willing to rely on that in the heat of the battle? Let's get real now. Because this is the thing I don't understand. Like, which world are these people living in? When you go against somebody who is a resisting opponent, who's an aggressive opponent, who's interpersonal violence, out on the street, they're not just going to let you hit them and do nothing. They're going to fight back, and they're going to fight back with everything they have. I'm going to. There's a fallacy out there, right? I'll stick my fingers in the guy's eyes. I'll kick him in the nuts. I've had that done to me. I've had people try to stick their fingers in my eyes outside nightclubs. I've had people kick me in the groin. I've had even somebody punch me in the throat. So unless you landed that ultimate shot that was able to switch me down, right, and switch me off, remembering I'm conditioned, okay, I'm used to fighting, I'm used to the pressure, and I've done a ton of this. So the chances of you getting that right is like 1 in a trillion, right? And the minute that shit doesn't work, and 99.9% of times it does not work, I'm gonna fight back with everything I have, and you better be prepared to deal with that. Because I say this all the time, right? And I don't mean this in some kind of egotistical kind of way. I live in one of the most violent cities in the world, Johannesburg. These criminals have no issue jumping my wall in the middle of the freaking day and taking me and my family on. That's why we're always aware of our security and our surroundings, and we have big dogs, and we have cameras, and we have armed response on panic buttons. This is just the way we live here, right? If that dude jumps over my wall, I have respect for him. And he's willing to do it, even if he's on drugs and shit, but he's willing to do it in the middle of the damn day, not knowing who I am. But I'm telling you right now, he better kill me. Because I'm going to do whatever I need to do to protect myself and my family that day. And I'll have no sleepless nights about having to do what I have to do. I've never had any sleepless nights. I don't suffer from PTSD from fighting all those years, right? Because whenever I had to fight, it was justified. I had no choice but to do it. But once I make a decision to go, I'm going to go 1,000,000%, right? And so even then, as I tell people in my classes, do not confuse me being polite on the mat and letting you play the game as the reality. Because the street mindset is a completely different mindset. I've been there, I've done it, I've got the t-shirt. I go into the zone, I go what I call clear, I don't get angry, I don't get pissed off, my mind is totally focused, and I know what I need to do, and I'm willing to do whatever it's going to take to win that situation. And I've done it many, many times. So the fact remains is this, coming back to what I started off talking about. There is nothing I'm going to teach on this mat, and I'm going to teach again tonight, that I will not put my money on and show my students that I will do that same thing to them in sparring. Right? And if I can, for example, that's the cool thing about it, right? If I can pull it off in a nice way without really hurting them, and I'm not being, overly intense, and I can still pull it off. Now imagine if I switch on to 100. What am I able to do then if I'm able to switch on to 100? If I can do it at 20%, what's it going to be like when it's 100%, right? Most of the shit that's put out on YouTube, okay, you wouldn't even be able to pull it off at 20%. So when I see all this stuff, stick your fingers in the eyes, do this, shred the guy's face, kick the guy in the nuts, all this kind of stuff, okay, show me how you do that and stop somebody. when they are giving you 100% resistance, no protective gear, let's just go full out, let's see what happens. Different ball game. I'm not trying to be an asshole about it. I'm trying to instill some realism here, because this freaking martial arts world, the modern martial arts world, drives me insane, all right? I will never have this argument with a combat athlete, somebody who does boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, even though they have, their pros and their cons. But if you do MMA, that you can practice a double leg takedown all you freaking like. But if you can't pull it off against resisting opponents on the mat who are trying to stop that takedown with everything they have, then you haven't developed the skill. You haven't developed it. Even though a double leg takedown is a high percentage move, you still haven't put enough flight time in and developed the skill. So that's the other part of this, right? If you have minimal time and you're only training a couple of hours a week, why do you want to waste your time with stuff that, if at best, is possible, but never probable, all right? Focus on the stuff that's probable. It is far more probable that I'm going to throw a jab, land it, or throw a cross and land it in a street situation than I would if I did a jumping back spinning kick. Okay? That doesn't mean that a jumping back spinning kick may work maybe 1 in 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 times, but you don't have that luxury when you're in an interpersonal violent encounter, and anything you do now that is in the realm of possibilities could see you losing your life. This is the time where you focus on probabilities beyond anything else, right? And so this is what Crazy Monkey Defense is about. It doesn't have everything that other martial arts systems have and styles have, and I'm perfectly fine with that, as I've said before. I know that what I teach works, not because I drill it on the mat, because I used it hundreds of times in several years of bouncing, growing up, developing my skill, in the military, all these experiences that I had, and plus probably, 50,000 hours of sparring all over the world versus people who ultimately went on to fight in the UFC, people who became world champions, Muay Thai world champions. Some people went on to become, high-level boxers. I don't mention names, it's irrelevant. What does it matter? I know from an embodied perspective in my own experience what actually works for real. Have discernment, guys. Be a little bit more switched on. Think about it in the way that I've described it. If it doesn't meet my criteria, like I said, I'm not interested. I have nothing to say about it, okay? All right? I can watch something within, say, 5 seconds, and I can tell you off the bat if that's going to work or it's not. I want you to have that same discernment. That discernment allows you to keep yourself safe and those that you love.